أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. We seek refuge in God from shaitan. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Our teacher today is Masud from Sabahi, and we'll be working starting at Sura 74.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before starting the Surah, I think in the tradition of teachers and students, I'm going to have a pop quiz next week on what I teach today, so that the ones who sleep, and you'll find out about who is listening and who is not. I think maybe tonight is about the anniversary of the time that I came to the mosque last year. Or it is close, because I know it from the NBA playoffs. When I came the first night here, there was a gentleman here who had a small TV. He moved to Detroit, I guess, and he had the Lakers and I guess Detroit on TV. So it's about a year, more or less.
God has His ways of reminding us of important dates.
And this is a very tough surah that is given to me. But given the fact that God is the teacher of Quran, I ask Him to help me tonight, hopefully to be able to do a good job of what I understand from this surah, basically. And then I'll give you my views, and whatever you think about it, and it can be discussed. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. One more thing that I have to add. I've divided the surah in different parts. I have gone through the whole thing and tried to see what the overall point of the surah is, and whether I can divide it in different parts that could help us understand it better. The first 7 verses of the surah, starting from 1 until 7, it seems to be like the instructions that God is giving to a lot of people think to Muhammad, and we know that it is not only to Muhammad, it's to everyone, and especially to what we know about the code right now. So start with the first verse. O you hidden secret, come out and warn. Extol your Lord, cleanse your cover, forsake what is wrong, be content with your Lord, steadfastly commemorate your Lord. These 7 ayahs, as you see, God is instructing or ordering the secret. I looked into a lot of translations, Farsi translations. All of them almost unanimously translate this as, "Oh, you, the person who you have covered yourself with some clothing or something," which they have taken it literally as someone who is under something covered, which they think is Muhammad, and this is towards him, telling him that, "Oh, you Muhammad, you be the secret, come out and warn, start your mission and bring your message across." Especially this may be the 3rd surah that was revealed to Muhammad. That's what makes it for a lot of people to believe that this is directly for Muhammad. But now that we know that Quran is for all times, that doesn't apply to Muhammad. It can apply to anyone, and it can apply to what we believe is the messenger. Then God is telling that secret, the person, whoever it is, that glorify your Lord, cleanse your cover, which I had a lot of trouble understanding. What does that cleansing mean? It could be a lot of people in Farsi translations, they have taken it as cleaning your clothes, because you want to pray, you want to go to talk to God, so you have to clean your clothes from whatever is on it, so that it's clean and nice but basically it could mean that it is about the secret that cleans the message, cleans the Quran for the religion from whatever it has been attached to it during these 1400 years. Then God is asking him to forsake what is wrong, stay away from the wrong, be content with your lot. This is very crucial. Be happy with what God has given you, and always commemorate your Lord. With these 7 surahs, then God is putting another instruction that I think is from 8 to 11. God is saying, then, when the horn is blown, that will be a difficult day. For the disbelievers, not easy. Let me deal with what I created as an individual. God is here in these ayahs 8 to 11 is telling the messenger that when the horn is blown, which is obviously referring to the day of judgment, which is going to be a difficult day for the disbelievers and a good day for the believers, he says that's not going to be an easy day for those, and let me deal with those. And this is a very interesting ayah to me, at least. Let me deal with what I created as an individual. Sometimes we take it upon ourselves to deal with those who are disbelievers or who happen not to agree with what we say, and we try to deal with them or make judgments. And I think this is a very good verse that here God is telling us that let me deal with those. Don't worry about those. I'm going to deal with them. You worry about what you're supposed to. Then from these instructions, the first part, if you look at it, it's all in present tense. It's like the instructions telling him what to do and what not to do. And then from 12 on, it starts with, I provided him with lots of money. I provided these, which is referring, I believe, to the disbeliever, those individuals that God is saying that I'll deal with them. I provided him with lots of money and children to behold. I made everything easy for him, yet he is greedy for more. He stubbornly refused to accept these proofs. I will increasingly punish him. For he reflected, then he decided. Miserable is what he decided. Miserable indeed is what he decided. He looked, he frowned and whined, then he turned away arrogantly. He said, this is but clever magic. This is human made. I'll stop at 25 because I think between 12 and 25 we have a very interesting description of a disbeliever. God is teaching us and telling us that He has provided those with lots of money, something that people tend to take as a measure of happiness, as a measure of success. And since God knows that, which is something that human beings are used to, He says that I provided him lots of money. And then children are second to money here as something that everyone knows that how human beings love to have children. And so this is another blessing from God, that in addition to money that God provides for everyone, He provides children. And then He says, I made everything easy for him, just to test him, I guess, to make sure that everything is provided for him. He says, I made everything easy for him so that he can reach whatever he likes to. But he's greedy for more. Human beings are greedy. You never are content with what you get, what God provides you, unless you learn to believe in God and to be happy with what you have. This is something that especially for younger generations, my own children, we always have this discussion that, why don't you have more? Where is it? So never ends. The more you have, the more you want. You can see it everywhere, especially in this country, which is so rich. You see it more and more. People want more, more, more. You read it, you see it in TV, newspapers, every aspect of life. It is not only in money, it's in fame, it's in science, it's everywhere. There are people who are greedy. It doesn't matter what it is. They're greedy for more. They are not happy with what they are. There's a difference between being greedy for more and being trying to reach your potential. So you shouldn't mix those things up. You have to work hard. God loves the people who work hard, and you can reach higher grounds. But you always have to commemorate and remember what God tells you, which we have it at the second part of the Surah, at the later part of the Surah. He stubbornly refused to accept these proofs. God is referring to the proofs that we are going to go to it later on, that he stubbornly refuses to accept those. And we have seen people who do this. I will increasingly punish him. Now God is telling us that what he's going to do with those disbelievers. I will punish him, and the reason is that he reflected, then he decided. Miserable is what he decided. Miserable indeed is God is again is stressing of the fact that this decision of not heeding the warnings and learning and believing in God alone is a miserable decision. He looked, he frowned and whined, then he turned away arrogantly. He said, "This is but clever magic. This is human made." When I was reading these verses and with everyday life that we go through, I see it's real. It is everyday. It's not something that only may have happened to Muhammad or God was telling to Muhammad. This is something that happens every day, especially since with my background, coming from a religious family, Muslim family, living in Iran, and coming to U.S., getting education, going back during the revolution, and thinking that this is what we wanted, Islamic country. This is what everyone wanted. We were looking, we were striving to have Islam as part of our country, as part of the government. And it has been a tradition. I'm going to just get away from this for a minute, which I think is something I have thought a lot about it, and I think it is something that would be fine if I shared with you. We went back home in 1979, which was right after the revolution. I love to go back because this was something that we loved to see, an Islamic government, everything according to what we had the knowledge of Islam, is the religion of equality, justice for everyone, and so everyone was happy, and 96% of the people voted for Islamic Republic. That was a true vote that happened in that time. And my job was to teach in the university, and the university was the source of the center of all the action, the intellectuals, the educated people. And because of the Islamic background that all of us have in Iran, in addition to people who were leftists towards Marxism, there were a lot of groups who had Islamic backgrounds and wanted to have an Islamic government, but they didn't know what it is. How God wants to run this country, if it is what he really wants. But every group, there were maybe in a time, I remember there were maybe 10 different Islamic groups, everyone with a different interpretation, not of Quran, of something that they thought is from Quran. Because now I look back and I see that how far we have been, how far I have been, how far those people have been from the truth. Because now that I go through this, I still don't know much about Quran. But when I read more, when I come to studies, I see that this is a different story. And over there, which I think is a good example of what is happening in all of the Islamic world, is that people take their own understanding, which is not complete. They don't have access to the Arabic. They have access to lousy translations, And one interesting thing that I read recently was that somebody mentioned that people try to interpret Quran or translate Quran based on the Hadith. They mean they adjust the Quran translation or understanding to the Hadith, not vice versa. And this is a very true thing that happens. But anyway, during these times, always wanting more from Islam, wanting to know more from Quran has been something that, especially the younger generations after Sharia, they wanted to know. But unfortunately, there is no way that you can reach these things. You can reach the point to see what is really in here. What happened is that people started to think twice after what happened, after 2 or 3 years after the revolution. Everybody started to blame Islam and Quran and whatever is related to it. They didn't think that this is because this religious establishment, whose leaders are there, ruling the country, were representative of Islam, and people who just knew Islam because they were born as Muslims, they saw this as a true representation of what is really all about. When you say Islam, you stone a woman. If you see Islam, you execute someone without any trial. If it's Islam, they can search you without any warrant, anything. They can take you, kill you, and so on and so forth. So what happened was that after 5 years, which I was eligible to come from Sabahi, 4 years after I came to US for a presentation of a paper to a conference, then as a matter of fact, I came to Tucson to visit a friend. Then went back home and I told Eric that I have to go for Sabahi Khalifa. I'm sick and tired of. I want to learn more science, so I have to go. So I started to look for Sabahi Khalifa is something that everybody who works in university after so many years is eligible to go for extension of their education or catching up with the science, to update their knowledge. After the revolution, they have completely demolished it. But when I went back home, I said, Mary, we have to go. Whatever happens, we want to go, we should go. And God knows now that I know, after a few months, they passed the rule that now people can go. And since I was one of the older, at least at the time, had more experience at the university, I applied and was accepted. It was a big, long journey to come to U.S. And we almost stopped in Vancouver, but things worked out, and thanks God we ended up in Tucson. But when we came here, one thing that I didn't want to hear about was Islam, Quran, and everything. The reason was that I saw the brainwashings that were going on in schools. I mean, my children in school, and it was a dilemma. What could I teach them? What is being taught in the schools? And what contradictions and what problems and what dangers are involved. So anyway, we came here, and I remember one day one of these Jehovah's Witnesses came to the door and talked to her. She couldn't refuse, and she thought she's so nice. She talked to them, and after they kept calling, and she said, "Mahmoud, talk to them. Tell them we don't want to hear it." And I said, "You invited them. Why should I?" So anyway, one Sunday morning they showed up at the door. 2 very nice ladies. I opened the door. I had chain on. I said, "No, we don't want to talk to you." The lady insisted. I felt bad. I said, "Okay, let's make an arrangement for another week." So anyway, one day they came in. I sat down with them and said, "Okay, I listened to you in all of your things." She started, giving all the sermon of whatever she wanted to talk about, and I said, "See, I'm coming from a religious country. I have lived 5 years under Khomeini. I have decided that I'm going to be away from any religion for the rest of my life. What you're saying is exactly what Khomeini said, and they're similar. I don't want to hear it. Please don't bother us." The lady was shocked, so they left. They never came back. It took about 3 years, I guess, that all of a sudden we realized that something is missing. And the missing part was that I saw my children growing, and I had the privilege to be raised in a religious family, to learn this either from school, either my parents see them, and practice religion. But And we looked around and said, God, something wrong is happening. And I knew that there was no way that I could go anywhere else. And I didn't know about this mosque at all. Somehow Mary found out about it, and she said she came sooner than me, as a matter of fact. And then one night she said, okay, let's go, try it, it's not going to hurt. And I came a few nights, and I listened. One thing that impressed me the most was the fact that the message was strong. Worship God alone, forget about everything else. And one night I remember I asked, because I had heard from other friends that, this is the person, which was Dr. Khalifa, is saying he's the messenger of God. How can it be? We have Khatam al-Nabiyyin, there's impossible that somebody else could be. And I asked him, I remember in one of these studies, I said, why you say you are a messenger of God? And I don't know whether he remembers what he answered me or not, but his answer was great for me, and he said, messenger doesn't mean something in this, I'm not quote unquote exactly saying what he said. But he said, messenger is not important. What is important is the message. If you like the message, take it. If you don't like it, so leave it. Which the message was something that I liked, and I have been here since then. So, nowadays, my friends here, a lot of them are very puzzled. One of them, who I was talking recently to, he doesn't practice either. He says he doesn't believe in anything. But one thing very interestingly, he asked me, he said, why among all those mosques you go to this mosque? And I said, what does it have to do with you? Because you say you don't believe in God. He didn't say he doesn't believe in God. I pushed him. I said, okay. You say you don't believe in God? I said, no, I believe in God. He was scared to say that. But he said, Muhammad wrote Quran. He just wrote it himself. He did everything. And these are all a bunch of his word nonsense. I said, that's your thing. But why do you worry about what I go and where I go? And he asked me, why don't you go to the other? And I said, I hate this kind of, I have seen those and I can't take that kind of, I have practiced, I have seen those, and I know what the consequence of that kind of understanding of Quran is. But these, going back to these verses that I have here, 22, 23, and 24 and 25, that's exactly what I hear. This is, we used to hear it back home, but usually we wouldn't get into discussion about these things because religion was there, we were there, and everyone was happy with their life. But now it is something that people pay attention to. They're surprised. Why you go there? Why do this? Why? This is all exactly what God is saying. That they say, this is clever magic, this is human made. And then God is saying that I'll commit him to retribution. What retribution? Thorough and comprehensive, obvious to all people. And over it is 19. I'm going to stop here, catch up my breath, and see because if I go like this, I can't finish in 5 minutes. I haven't prepared the next surah at all, so this is tough. So I'll stop here, and as they say, open the floor for discussion or comments. Or don't ask me questions. I gave him a few questions to ask me. This one, when we teach, that's what we do.
Any questions? Okay, let me open the discussion, then maybe this will start something. Dr. Sabahi mentioned about when God provided him with lots of money and children to be home, I made everything easy for him, and he's greedy for more. There's a very famous saying in this country that you never have enough of money. You never have enough. And it's very true. You come close to some of the richest people in the world and they don't have enough. I was listening to Sammy Davis Jr. the other day on TV. He wrote a book called Why Me? and he's making the rounds on all the shows and the radios and so on. And I found out that 6 years ago they put a lien on his house. Here's a man who makes $1 million a week. They put a lien on his house because he lost everything in gambling. He worked in Las Vegas. And the IRS put a lien on his house, and he was very poor. He was very drunk. He was very miserable. So here's a person that we think is very rich, glamorous. Henry Ford is an example of very rich people who will pound the table very hard and he wants more money, more profit. He wants more. So the definition of rich and poor will turn everything upside down. Because Henry Ford was very poor, since he wanted more. The definition of poor is needy. One who needs more. If you need more, you're poor. Doesn't matter how many millions you have in the bank account. If you need more, you're needy, you're poor. And the rich person is a content person. No matter how little you have in the bank, if you're content and happy and have all your needs satisfied, you're rich. So this is really the definition of rich and poor. Because they never have enough. It's a very famous saying. It's a standard thing that they say. You never have enough. If you're a person, if you're in God's kingdom, you really have access to God's treasury. Anything you need will come to you at the time you need it. And it will come to you in the portions or the amounts that is good for you. It will keep you in God's path, in God's kingdom, will keep you happy, and will keep you satisfied. You may become a millionaire or you may not. But in either case, you will be content. You will be rich. And we see this in Surah 54, God says He's the one who makes you rich or poor. And Surah 63, you remember, God said in Arabic, they don't understand it and don't translate it. He said, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَكِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Says all dignity, or all power, or all richness, all contentment belongs to God, to His messenger, to the believers. But the hypocrites do not know. So, if they look at your bank account, they may not decide you're rich, but you're really the richest person in the world. You have all your needs satisfied, you're eating as much as you can, and you're dressing as much as you can, and you're perfectly happy, and what you eat you enjoy. So, this is this is very significant when God says, I gave him lots of money, but he's greedy for more. Because if they are disbelievers, they are poor, no matter how much money they have. And you always remember how miserable our news was. That's why it's billion. So this is the true riches. Number 16, you see, he stubbornly refused to accept these proofs. It's also redeemed in number 19. And as we saw some proofs today of the miracle of the Quran, and the word stubborn had to be fulfilled. People who are not accepting the miracle of the Quran are stubbornly refusing to accept these overwhelming proofs. They are overwhelming. So the Quran is just describing that. As you know, we started out with just a few pieces of proof. They were still overwhelming. So the Quran, the opening statement is 19 letters. The number of surahs is 19 times 6. The missing basmala is a chunk of the 19 surahs later. It's very simple. Surah Qaf has 19 times 3, Surah Mulk has 19 times 7. Yes, simple things. Then it kept growing and growing, and they kept stubbornly refusing and refusing. Until it became ridiculous. They would be scandalized that they were such. Until they refuse all that. So, is there any other idea in sharing this? I look at this as the whole surah is talking to the number 19. Then to cover means clean all the doubts, remove all the incorrect things, could refer to the two verses, remove the two verses. Yes?
The teaching of this social chapter is a making chapter. There's no mention of conclusion in the outcome. There's often suggested to it by takes of your love that yes, we still cover it will be simple literally.
As you know, the number 19 was instrumental in removing the two verses, which were pollution in the Quran. And this is to cleanse the Quran from these two human-made statements. And the number 19 was the factor in removing it. A lot of people are suspicious of that, even in the books of Hadith. But we did not have the tools or the means or the strength or the proof to remove them, which is a big thing. Then we saw the number 19. Just that's fine, but I look at it as only the person doing what I think.
I got so excited that I forgot my notes because I prepared some notes. Referring to that same verse, cleanse your cover, since a lot of Farsi translations have that as clothing, which is libas in Arabic. I tried to see whether there is anywhere in Quran that God refers to cover as libas. I just found one. I think it's 78:10. God says the Arabic is وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا, which you have to translate it as cover again. We make the night a cover, but the Arabic word is libas, which is what you put on, clothing. But here, it's just thiyabika, which I don't know what the Arabic really means, whether it means cover. Then I realized that if God wanted to talk about the clothing, to clean up your clothes, then he would have used libas rather than thiyabika for that.
Actually, thiyab also means garment.
Does it?
Yeah, it means garment. But this and the word.
There is also a further, I think a further benefit involved in the Quran is the use of the multi-meaning words to encourage disbelievers to have different interpretations of the same verse, for example. And the Quran says that. It says that's the mechanism by which God misguides the disbelievers. So let them blunder in their.
There was also a dilemma here that this surah, the hidden secret was hidden for 14 centuries.
Right.
So what will the people do before the discovery?
Exactly. I mean, this is also the والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها. The word دحاها also is a multiple word because God is so merciful that He even has respect for the idiots that do not know that Earth is round and they think it's flat.
It's not multi-meaning.
No, it also has this.
Not one meaning.
Doesn't the means
No.
in
I was going to say, it doesn't have multi-meaning. This is one meaning.
One meaning. They couldn't understand this because it's so obvious. The ha in Arabic is egg. The ha made it that egg. It's very obvious. There's no any other meaning.
no, but
they couldn't understand this. They had difficulty with understanding this. They started to interpret this. They said the haha means metha. Metha means the egg, the place of egg, where you put. They said from Deha, Allah wants from us to understand Medha, the place of egg. Make like the place of egg, but Allah doesn't say Medha. They interpret it by forces.
but isn't that true that Dahi also means basket?
No.
They say cow.
No.
So they invented this meaning because they could not.
They could not understand.
What does this
I
mean?
see.
You know?
I see.
There's this X-ray.
There is a multiple meaning sentence here, verse 29.
Yes.
All the people. It also has another meaning, but this meaning is very far from the Quran text. Yawahad al-Bashar has two words in this verse. Yawahad, its meaning is to obvious, Yawahad. And the other meaning is burn, to make to burn. Al-Bashar in Quran, full Quran, Bashar is humankind. And another meaning is not used in Quran, but in Arabic you can find Bashar means skin. They prefer the second meaning. The wahd in Bashar is burning the skin of a human being because of the hair. And they could understand in this way. It's very interesting. But the first meaning, which more dominant, the wahd in Bashar, because the word Bashar is mentioned the second time in the verse 31. And the last word of verse 31 is the Bashar. Zikra al-Bashar. It is a reminder for the people, full people. But if you look to all interpretation, all of them will interpret it as the word al-Bashar burning, it burns the skin of your body. This multiple meaning.
The Quran always gives you, there is a questionable word that will give you an
Exactly.
explanation.
That's the mechanism.
The next verse or the verse before that, immediately before that. It's like when the Quran talks about the Salat prayer being in existence before the Quran. They tell you the Salat at that time was planting and whistling. Just to ridicule the disbelievers. But God gives them a word too, actually, in the verse before that, using the same word which was repelling. And by crowding the mosque, they were repelling the unbelievers by doing something to keep them away. It has nothing to do with clapping or whistling. They invent this meaning just like that. Easily. Like the Hanamin flag.
I refer to
And like the
logic.
Ummi and the Prophet of the God, the Prophet Ummi. They
Right.
made the word, the Gentiles, they made it into illiterate. And it actually became a word in the language.
I know.
It's a false word.
Ummi means somebody who's illiterate.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that. You were saying something?
No, I was saying that I was referring to al-Munjid.
Oh, you mean one of the Mufassirs?
Yes.
Right? They do say that.
It's in the encyclopedia.
After changing the meaning, they
After changing
started to use it.
Exactly.
But if you look at the big translation, you will see many of they use words. They say Naha means
Because they
by different. Naha means what it should be understood as method.
They force their traditions on the Quran. One of the major things is, for example, for the women to cover their chest. They make the word, they say it comes up from the head down to the chest. You know, they're telling God what to do. They're telling the Quran what to correct. Understand? So they force their traditions on the Quran.
To give you another example of the meaning word, a very interesting example is خلق الإنسان من علق. He created human beings from علق. What is علق? Well, if you look all the translations, also the new translation, because many of them based on old translations, you see from a cloth, from a blood, from cloth, yes. But it is embryonic. Scientifically, it is not true, not correct. In our evolution, from until birthday, there is no space, no blood. If you look at Arabic, in Arabic, it has three meanings. Not the two meanings, it has three meanings. One is cloth, alaq, alaq al-insan min cloth. And the second one, the hanging part, a piece, a part that's hanging on something. Mu'allaq. You use in Arabic in Farsi, mu'allaq, alaq. And the third meaning is that small animal that, how do you say it? You put on your, yes, it is. And now we see that this is the second phase of evolution, and this must be should be translated in the second or third medium. Allah created us from like a hanging animal, yes, embryo. But all people, previous generation, they couldn't understand in this way. They chose the first option, and they all anonymously gave the same translation. Not correct.
Well, I have news for you. There's only two meanings, not three. Alaf meaning cloth doesn't even exist. They invented it. It doesn't even mean cloth. They added the new meaning. They invent these things as they go. Okay, back to Dr. Sabahi.
Before getting to 31, one comment about what you said about the disbeliever, how miserable they are and they don't know it. 29:54, the verse says, they challenge you to bring doom, though hell is actually surrounding the disbelievers and they don't realize it. So this is another verse that I found that relates to what it is really. It's a continuous matter being in hell that starts from here and then continues to the day of resurrection. Verse 31 by itself, it is all in present time, in present tense, sorry. We made the guardians of hell angels, and we assigned their numbers 19, in parentheses, for the following reasons: to disturb the disbelievers, to convince the Christians and the Jews, to strengthen the faith of the faithful, to remove all the traces of doubt from the hearts of Christians, Jews, as well as the believers, and to expose those who harbor doubt in their hearts and the disbelievers. They will say, what did God mean by this allegory? God does send astray whoever he wills, and guides whomever he wills. None knows the soldiers of your Lord except he. This by itself is a huge chapter. First I tell you about the translations that I saw, and it is very interesting when I look at them, is that everyone translates, most of the ones that I saw, translate this right. They say, we made the guardians of hell. Exactly, they say the guardians, the ones who are guarding the hell, 19. And this is for these reasons, to disturb the disbelievers, to convince the Christians and the Jews to join this, to accept that this is a divine scripture, and to strengthen the faith and so on. But none of them relates this part to the beginning, the rest of the 29 verses that are preceding this. So they isolate this or translate it as if there is no relationship between this and the hidden secret that God is mentioning at the first. What would it mean if God was telling Muhammad, okay, come out and give the message and warn, while he's telling that there are 19 angels, and this number 19 is a secret. It is something that we have put in there to disturb the disbelievers. The first thing that God is saying is that to disturb the disbelievers, because when you go to them with this, I haven't done it yet, so I don't know how the reactions is, but I can imagine how they would react. And seeing what I have seen here is that it really disturbs them. So they try to avoid what is the logic. This is a logic. This is a mathematical code. This is something which nobody can say it is something that made by Rashad Khalifa or whoever else. It is something which is in there, and nobody can deny it. So it really disturbs the disbelievers. And then to convince the Christians and Jews, which is clear by itself, to strengthen the faith of the faithful. This is very crucial, at least for me, because usually, especially the educated people who go to college, if they go further and do more and more, all of a sudden they look in the mirror to themselves and say, wow, this is me, discovering all these things, finding all these things, and you start thanking yourself in the mirror that, wow, what a creature I am, that I'm doing all these things. And slowly you can really lose your faith. You start questioning, how can God do all these things? Especially for me, chemist. I was thinking, 20 years I've been doing chemistry, and it is a wonderful field, and it is so amazing that for me, I look at it and I say, God, how could this happen? But coming back and reading Quran and trying to understand it, it gives me more the feeling that no, this is real, this is scientific, this is something that God has created and left for us to use for our everyday life. And 5, to expose those who harbor doubt in their hearts and the disbelievers. To expose those who harbor doubts in their hearts, which here clearly this is about the hypocrites, that if you offer them this code, this evidence, and then God does send astray whomever He wills and guides whomever He wills. None knows the soldiers of your Lord except He. Going back to what I mentioned about at least my own experience and the question of number 19, from the day that I came to this mosque, I heard about it, and I saw it, and I saw people talking about it. But it didn't catch up with me. The reason was that, as I said, I had the background, and also in every day of my life, I see so many signs. As I said, I do chemistry, and I see what has God created, and how this complicated system works. At least thousands of chemists and scientists are trying to find out how this system works, and still there are years and years away from understanding it. So to me, it wasn't unusual that there's such a code would be in Quran, but it was something, as I said, that gave me the support that I needed to know that if I confront somebody who is scientific, who tries to take me out with science, then we can get into real science and go to mathematical code and say, okay, this is what it is. And another thing that I have noticed, I have to mention it here, is that the mathematical code is great, as it was said in today's khutbah. It keeps going on and going on, and what I have noticed, sometimes people take, I shouldn't say abuse, but using it too many times for little things. If I see something happening outside, it happens to be 19 cars. It happens to be 19 on one guy's thing. As I don't know, I never shared this with everyone, but one night, a few months back, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I started counting the letters in Eric's name, in Farsi's name. She has a long name. It was very funny. I thought, what are you doing in the middle of the night? Why am I counting those? So honestly, this really happened to me. I'm not saying this is, but I counted them and it was 19. So I recounted them. It was 19. Then I said, I have to wake her up and say, this is it. Then I said, she's going to laugh at me, say, you crazy, go to in the middle of the night. But first of all, I got scared, to tell you the truth. I said, hey, what is happening? What is this? So finally, after half an hour, I didn't wake her up and went back to sleep. In the morning, as soon as I got up, she was in the kitchen. I went to her. I said, Eric, there are 19 letters in your complete name. She started laughing. She was dying, and she said, come on, don't joke. I said, honestly, this is what happened to me last night. And so we sat down and counted. It was 19. But whatever the reason, I looked at it as a coincidence. I wouldn't, because I think that's why I thought, I told Merrick that she may be an Imam Zadeh. You know what Imam Zadeh is? Imam Zadeh is Adib, you know what Imam Zadeh is? not the same exactly. Someone related to the Imam. Right. And I said, I guess this is a. So anyway, what I.
She's counted the test for you. She investigated the test. All the rest of the test. That's all. She's much better than the test.
So, in any case, but seriously, this is something that sometimes I think those times when we go try to overkill something which is not related to this, something that everybody can question your logic, because if you try to mix them up, then you I think are taking away from what is really here. What is it? Dilution. Oh, okay. Chemical terms. Yes, you're diluting. You're right. So this is something that I wanted to mention as part of what I saw in this verse and overall in the Surah. And going back to this verse, God thus sends astray whomever He wills and guides whomever He wills. None knows the sorcerer of the Lord except He. This is another thing that I would like to mention. I have another verse from Surah 19, Maryam, I guess, 73. When our revelations are recited to them, clearly explain, the disbeliever asks the believers, which side is more powerful and in greater number? And here God says, none knows the soldiers of your Lord except He. I think there's something related to this. My understanding is that God is telling us, reminding us, don't judge people. We are responsible, we have the responsibility of giving the message, warn them, but in no ways we have the right or are given the right to try to judge them. If they are believers or non-believers, God knows it. We don't have to say to someone that he is a disbeliever or non-believer, because it is a very, very big responsibility that I would take personally if I told someone he is not a believer, or he is a believer, or he is not. The only thing that I can tell him is that, okay, this is the truth, this is God's message, this is the truth. Take heed or not. And since God tells us later, and here again, He guides whomever He wills, and sends astray whomever He wills, that again is telling us that we have no business of judging people. And again, I have experienced this, that a lot of people who are really interested to come and listen and learn for different reasons. Some of them are curious. Some of them are really looking for a place that would be free from all the things that have been added to Islam. Somewhere that they can sit down freely to listen and learn, and then decide. If God wills, they will learn and they will abide by the rules of the Quran. If not, then we'll go back to where they are. But if we, as persons, as people who come here, and somehow the more we come here, we feel that feeling of belonging to this place, we try to protect it. And in that protection, the thing that we feel we have to do, because we think it is for the best interest of the Quran and God, we may make a mistake. We may even, if one person doesn't get the chance to come in here and listens, at least to what is the message, then we have to do something with it. Then we are responsible. And this is something else that I have noticed, and I thought that I have to, because this is the only time that I can talk and everyone can listen. So that I wanted to mention, and hope that everyone, all of us, will learn from this and a lot of other verses that are repeated in the Quran. I think I'll stop here again, because this is a heavy verse, and open the floor for discussions and questions from the colleagues.
About the knows the sources of your Lord except He. Very interesting. God says it is his relation with numbers, with 19. And Allah used Junud, the word Junud, soldiers for angels and also for believers that fight for God. And I had written down some verses about soldiers of God. For example, to God belongs all the forces, all the soldiers of the heavens and the earth. God is Almighty wise. In Sura. And another verse, then God sent down a sense of security upon his messengers and the believers, and he set down invisible soldiers who tormented the disbelievers. This is what the disbelievers deserve. In another verse, you had said to the believers, is it not enough that God supports you with 3,000 angels descending? These the numbers also in Quran. The number of Quran has been counted, and the total number of numbers without multiplication is a multiple 19. If you add these numbers and to another number, and it will not be multiple of 19 unless you add another number that mentioned after this verse. If you steadfastly persevere and work righteously, then they take you, your Lord will support you with 5,000 great angels. If you add these 5,000 also, the total of full numbers in Quran without multiplication becomes multiple of 19. From this we can understand that God has many kinds of soldiers, many kinds of forces. One of them is number. And the full number we cannot know the greatness of this number. And also the kind of soldiers of God. What kind of soldiers does God have? And here I think Allah mentioned that number 19 also one of the soldiers of God, and you don't know its strength and its limitation.
And verse 31, where he's talking about to convince the Christians and the Jews, and under number 2, and under number 4 also, where you're talking about the Christians and the Jews, are you talking about, is that as, like we were talking about last week about, there's, in the next 300 years there'll be more people that, we're in the early generations. Are you talking about the Christians and the Jews as a whole, and the religion being started now, and like convincing the body of the Christians and the body of the Jews, or as an individual basis?
Both individuals and as a whole. But the Christians and Jews wonder, is the Quran the word of God or not? And the people who may come across it and read it say, is this a scripture? Is it from God? Is it Muhammad made? Or what?
Right, but then
so the mathematical code of conversion removes the doubts.
Right, that's an individual basis. But what about as, like, I guess I look at a lot of religions today as organizations, political organizations rather than faith.
When you start having the individuals, this will reach the groups as well. Groups, nations, communities. The trip of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
The so-called Muslims that they do not accept miracle of mathematical miracle of Quran, they interpret this verse in another way. They say it's the number of guardians of hell. And I have one question to them, and they cannot answer to this question. This question is the item 4 in verse 30. Item 4 says, to remove all traces of God from the hearts of Christians, Jews, as well as the believers. I ask them, with our number 19, with our understanding, and with our message, many Christians become Muslim, and in the future, they will be Muslim, inshallah. But with your number 19, how many Christians became Muslim and become Muslim? Why? Why should they become Muslim with this number 19? Yes, what's the reason? And they cannot answer this question.
I use number 3 actually. I asked the same question that the deep was talking about. Delusion number 3, strengthen the faith of the person. Why should it increase the faith of the person? Whether the angels guarding him at 19 or 26 or 72?
Yeah.
Why?
They say the answer is this. It has been prepared before. The answer is because they will find, according to the Jews, we find the number 19 guardian in their book also. I say no. It's not true in 2. Because they can't find in their book, there is no 19 guardian in their book. And the second, let's accept that there is, but it will not increase their faith because there are many things mentioned in Quran and in their book. These will decrease their belief because they say, you have stolen from our book, you copied from our book, Mary, there is story of Mary.
Did you know this was copyrighted?
Many stories in Quran common. Why? Especially number 19.
That's a common belief anyway amongst the Christians and Jews that the Quran has been copied from all that.
But this was what the Deep mentioned, is one of the ignorant tafsirs where they said it must be that 19 guardians in hell is also mentioned in the Bible.
Yes.
And when the Christians and Jews see this, they say, oh, the Quran must be correct. But there's no such thing in the Bible.
Many times you can explain miracle of 19 since it's undeniable. The best answer they have is they cannot deny it. So I have seen at least one case. The miracle of the Quran is more than that. So that's the best answer they can find. So they cannot deny it. They don't accept it. So what the answer they have is
It's more than that.
it's not good. It should be more than
Ask them, give me please examples.
Okay,
Give
that's
examples,
yes.
one more example. They will not give you, they will give you.
No, I had people who tried to write the Sura like this. I'm serious.
Mathematically coded?
Yes. Like writing 3 letters and stuff. Makes sense. You thought of maybe.
It's too late now, it's too overwhelming. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have one another question
Comments down.
about making judgment about others. I think the function of a person is making judgment all the time. Every second you are making judgment about things, about people, about everything. So if you mean that if you make a judgment without having any proof, do not disclose it to others or accept it. But in your day-to-day life, you love one person more than the other. This is just based on your personal judgment. You feel one person is more meant than the other. You get more close to him than the other. It's based on your personal judgment. But I agree that if you don't have enough evidence, you should not disclose it to somebody else that this guy is not a mu'min, that this is illegal. You don't have enough evidence. Or you cannot prosecute. That is the function of God. God will prosecute or make judgment, final judgment on any whoever he is. If that you mean, that I definitely agree. But personal judgment you are doing everything.
Yes, this is a very important point because they make a big deal here about don't judge. Well, you cannot say the person going to heaven or hell. This is what you cannot do. Because people change. They may change tomorrow. When Dr. Sabahi himself made a statement that somebody doesn't believe in God, it's a statement of fact. The person himself says, I don't believe in God. But we don't know if this person is going to hell or heaven, because tomorrow he may believe better than me. And so this is where you cannot judge in that respect, but you can, like you said, you make a judgment all day based on the Quran set criteria. The person himself says, I don't believe in God, you can say, this person does not believe in God. And this is not judgment. You can say, if he continues like this and dies as this believer in God, he will go to hell. This is what God says. You cannot say this person goes to hell or heaven without any basis. This is changing the constitution.
They even cannot disclose it. I think it's not good to disclose to somebody else.
But like people, sometimes though, when you're talking about just like personal judgments, even you find a lot of fault in them because oftentimes you draw conclusions. Somebody says something, well, I don't do this, and then you make assumptions, which is so judging all the way around.
That's
That all you have to worry about is yourself.
With assumptions that are
like it's a natural tendency that if you see this and you see this, well, people make conclusions or they assume that 1 and 2, well, that makes 3, but you don't know for sure, just because it's a human tendency to draw conclusions from other examples or things that may have affected you in your life, but it may not be true for all circumstances.
Exactly. This is a very important principle in the Quran that we must always remember. That a little bit of suspicion is sinful. Even a little bit is sinful. The person is passing by you and making a face. You draw a conclusion that this person is unfriendly or doesn't like you. Based on that, you can feel wrong. And it is sinful. Because that person will be having a headache or a stomach ache. You don't know why he's making a face. And you must give the person the benefit of doubt. Instead of telling that the person is unfriendly or doesn't like you, you have to say something is wrong with this person. And you feel more actually pity or kindness towards the person instead of the other way around. So the Quran makes this very clear, very strong. The little bit of suspicion is sinful. Do not make conclusions or assumptions without proof.
Can I make a point here? Like some people think that if a person doesn't come to the mosque and prays like in the afternoon, some people come at 12 and some of us cannot come. And people think that only because we don't come, we don't pray. And they, because we always have to be here or something. It doesn't have to be that we don't pray. We can pray when we're working or something like that. So it doesn't mean that we don't pray. Or that we don't have to do something. So like I missed a lot of yeah.
That's a sin. You shouldn't miss Quranic studies like this.
No. Well, I was working.
Oh, okay. You have an excuse? No.
So it doesn't mean that you're not trying to do your best to come or do something.
Your excuse makes it.
Steve, I want to continue. No, I'm not going to answer because I want to go and finish as much as I can. Then at the end, we'll do it because I think it's very important to get to the later part of the Sura, which is kind of interesting the way it is worded. 32 to 39. It's in the present tense. 32, absolutely, I swear by the moon, and the night as it passes, and the morning as it shines. This is one of the great miracles, the warning to human race, for those among you who wish to advance or regress. Every soul is trapped by its sins, except for those on the right. Again, if you put this, if you not try to isolate the verses from each other, you see clearly that God in 32, 33, and 34 is swearing even to human beings that I swear by the moon, by the night as it passes, because these are the things that we see, we feel, we experience every day, and the morning as it shines, that this is one of the great miracles. This is referring exactly to 31, that God is talking about 19 angels and the number 19, and God is swearing that this is one of the greatest miracles. And in 36, he's telling us that this is a warning to human race, which could apply to any way, any period of time as we know it. And for those among you who wish to advance or regress, we have the choice. If we see the miracle, if we follow the Quran, then we advance. Otherwise, we regress. And says every soul is trapped by its sins. The more you commit sins, the more you are going to be trapped. The more you will have a difficult time to get out of it. And this goes back to what has been discussed quite a number of times here, that the 40 years of age is the limit. But are we free to do everything up to that point? But I guess here, every soul is trapped by sins. The more you sin, the more you get trapped into it, the harder it is to get out. And so it is something that the progress has to be made by time. Then from 39 to I guess to 47, God is explaining what will happen in the future. Except for those on the right, while in paradise, the one who was on the right, while in paradise they will ask about the guilty, what brought you to this retribution? They will say, we did not observe the contact prayers. We did not feed the poor. We blundered with blunders. We disbelieved in day of judgment, until certainty came to us now. If we compare these verses 40 to 47, God is giving the reasons for people who go to the hell. Basically, these are the things that has been said over and over here in the studies or in the khutbahs, that God is giving the reasons to say, we did not observe the contact prayers. We did not feed the poor, the zakat. We blundered with blunders. And we disbelieved in the day of judgment. So these are the major sins that you can commit, and then you deserve hell. And then, when in the day of judgment, when you are in there, certainty came to you, it's too late. You have already committed enough that it's too late for you to repent. And God now is saying, it's a kind of closing on the whole surah. God is saying the intercession of the intercessor will never help them because of what they committed, the sins that they committed. Why are they so averse to this reminder, running like zebras who are fleeing from the lion? Does each one of them want to receive the scripture personally? Indeed, they do not fear the hereafter. Indeed, this is a reminder for those who wish to ask to take heed. They cannot take heed against God's will. He is the source of righteousness. He is the source of forgiveness. 48 is clearly what I didn't know before coming to the mosque, that the shafa'ah or intercession is not going to help anyone. That's why a lot of people who think they are Muslims, they believe in intercession by Muhammad, by his Ali, and maybe Umar, and so on and so forth. But clearly God is saying that no shafa'ah, no intercession. And then God is kind of, when I read this verse, it's kind of a father talking to his son, two sons, say, why are they so averse to this reminder? Because you tell your son, because you are more experienced, you have a little more gray hair, and he said, don't do this. God is telling us, don't do this, do the right things. But we are averse to the reminder. And then we go and experience it. And God does, you say, why are they so averse to this reminder? Why they don't take heed and they don't understand? They are running like zebras who are fleeing from lion. And then God is asking, I think there's a little bit sarcasm in here, that does each one of them want to receive the scripture personally? Should God come to each one of us personally and tell, okay, this is your scripture, go and follow these rules? And then God is telling us, indeed, they do not fear the hereafter. They are not afraid of the day of judgment. Indeed, this is a reminder. This book, this message, this miracle is a reminder for all the people. For those who
I think it came down on him.
Yeah, I heard this morning.
Yeah, should I come down to it? Indeed, this is a reminder for those who wish to take heed. They cannot take heed against God's will. He is the source of righteousness. He is the source of forgiveness. These have been discussed before here, and then since there's only 5 minutes, I'm going to stop. There are a few verses that I took out of other places that would support what is here, which I'm going to quote here, and then leave for questions and answers. So I think we can ask a question. That was the whole purpose of it.
Good question. The question is, when hypocrites appear, when they feel advantage in any community, they appear. And during the first beginning of Revelation, there was no hypocrite. There shouldn't be, because there is no benefit to become Muslim. Many Muslims are under torture. Some of them hide their persecution. But here it is admitted again that this is a prophecy of Quran, not describes the death. So, to expose those who harbor doubts in favor, the people who has disease in their heart. This description is used in the whole Quran for the description to describe hypocrites. But during this time of revelation of this chapter, there was no hypocrite. This shows that this is in the future. Another interesting point is they say we disbelieve in the day of judgment, but 2 verses after this, Allah says, the intercession of the intercessor will never have death. If you believe in intercession, it shows that you believe in resurrection also. Because you believe in intercession, you say when you resurrect, somebody will save you from God. Is there any contradiction between these verses? No. You see, then we disbelieve in the day of judgment. What is the day of judgment? The description of day of judgment in the Quran, we see there is no Shafa'i in that day. If you believe in Shafa'i, intercession, you deny, you disbelieve, you are disbeliever of day of judgment. Because Allah says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ يَوْمُ الدِّينِ, do you know what is يوم الدين? يَوْمَ لَا تَمْلِكُ نَفْسٌ لِنَفْسٍ شَيْئًا وَالْأَمْرُ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلَّهِ. That day, nobody has not any power. There's not any power. All power is power of God. And if somebody believes in Shafa'a, yes, he doesn't believe in day of judgment. If he says he is not only in service. Because I think both Muslims, so-called Muslims, and also rejectors of or atheists, both of them are addressed in these verses. Some people may understand Allah excludes so-called Muslims because they say we believe in the day of judgment, but in fact they do not believe in the day of judgment.
You understand the next point about the hypocrites, that the hypocrites show up only later when the true message from God is strong and generally accepted. But at the initial time, for the elite of the elite, the purest believers, when there is persecution of the believers, why would the hypocrites be attracted to a place where they're being persecuted and threatened? So there's no hypocrites at that time. So if you announce that everyone who comes to Masud will get $200, we have a big crowd here, and you can be sure some of them are hypocrites. They're not going to be hypocrites. But when it is persecution at different times, there's no hypocrites. Okay, we thank you very much, Dr. Sabahi. It's very enlightening. So I have to ask you to give us the book next Friday.
No, not that, please. No,
that's popular demand, right?
Do it.
You have a whole week to prepare.
No, please. Yeah. Yeah, really
Do
big.
it. Order.
No, no, please. Oh, yes.
And our teacher next week will be Masud, inshallah. So 75, 76, maybe 76. And we test Quran this time and ask him to give Robert a great year coming up. Best year of his life so far, and every year after that, to be even great. May God bless him and continue to give the guidance of this. Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
No vibration going on. Vibration, that is.